Hello, I'm Derek Agard with Wood Eye Designs, and we're going to show you how we make one of our really cool popular Easter basket name tags. Stay tuned. We need some artwork. We got ours off of a website. There's plenty out there. And I put it in our art library. It's a really cool feature that Lightburn has. I've got a lot of different art libraries. This is just a few of them. And so we start dragging over the bunny silhouette. And you can see here, it comes in at a certain height. We like ours a little smaller. I can simply drag this and it stays proportionate. I can change it up here. Because this is locked, if I change the height to say 12 inches tall, the width will change as well to keep that ratio. If I unlock it and I change this to say 5 inches, the width staying the same, it'll make this kind of squatty, short, and fat. So we want to keep the proportion the same. And so we want this locked, and we like a height of about 4 inches, and that seems to work really well for us. So now that we got that there, I need to put a little hole here for the string to go through. So we use our circle tool, and as I drag this circle tool, notice I can make it any type of circle I want, an oval or anything, but I want a true circle. So to do that, if I hold the shift key at the same time, I keep a perfect circle. So I'm going to keep that shift key holding down, and I let go of the mouse, and I've got a perfect circle. And that's a little big for what we want. So I'm going to make that a little smaller. I'd say somewhere about right there looks good. And I want this to be perfectly center here. But I think I'm going to have to eyeball that, because if I were to make it center this entire design, it's actually a little off. And I'll show you that. If that's selected and I select the entire design, and I go over here and I center them, notice this moves to the center. It's center of the design, but my ear being a little bigger and off to the side throws that off. So I don't want that. So you would think the tail is center, but it's actually a little off as well. So if I ungroup these, I'll show you that as well. Maybe not. Yeah, see, it throws it off just a little. So I'm going to just eyeball it and call that pretty good right there. So I've got my circle cut out, ready to go for the string. I need a name. So get the font tool, the letter tool, and let's see, we'll say Noah. Now I can come up here, I can select any number of different fonts. You can find more fonts online. Perfectly Beloved is one that we find works really good for an engrave on a tag like this. So I like this one. But because we want to cut this outside layer and we want to engrave the name needs to be on a different layer altogether. So we're going to put that on a layer all by itself. And so I click here and I go down and I put that on its own layer. So that'll cut separate. Now I want that to be in the middle. So with it selected, I can come up and I can select what I want to center it on, like that circle, and it'll move, and we'll call that pretty good to center. So we've got the name, we've got the outline. The tail, that's something we like to eyeball, but I could certainly offset that, make it a little smaller and score that line. We found it's easier just to eyeball it on the fly, so I'm going to get rid of that altogether. Now we need to make sure that the settings are good. And another really cool thing that Lightburn does is I can have all my cut settings in a library all their own, which is really neat. So I'm going to highlight the areas that I want to cut, and I come down and it's MDF and I want to cut that, and I assign it to that layer, and my settings will change automatically. And I'll show you that again. If you look at this blue layer that I've got, notice my settings. Well, let's change these to 500, 50, 50, okay? Notice when I click on this blue layer and I go to my library and I go to MDF, doesn't really matter the thickness, but it is an 1/8 inch, and I want to engrave it. When I assign that layer, notice it changed my settings up here to the ones that I have set in there. And you can make those anything you want. These are the settings that work great for me and my machine. So now I've got all that ready to go. So I am going to send it over to the laser by simply dragging, selecting everything I want to cut, going down here, selecting laser, and then sending it over. So now that the file's been sent to the laser, we're ready to cut. We take our MDF and we like to pre-paint it. So we painted this a really pretty blue. And then once that paint is completely dry, we find it best to mask it. So we put masking on the front and we mask the back as well, and it keeps those char marks off the back. There's a lot of different things you can do. You can raise it to help with those char marks as well, but we find it's just easiest to mask both sides. Masking's pretty affordable and it's easy, so it works best for us. So now that the file's on there, we are masked and ready. You can come over here, put this down. We want to make sure it's good and flat on the laser. I can bring the laser head to my material, or I can bring my material to the laser. It depends on what I'm doing. Some options are better in certain circumstances. But in this case, I think I can kind of line it up pretty close to what I want. I've cut a couple things already, so I'm going to try to come and cut right in this area. So I go to my file. On this menu, I hit file. Since it's the last thing that I sent over, it pulls up as Noah, which is what I named it, and it has a picture of the file I want, which is great. So I just hit enter. It shows you your cut settings and the layers that you're doing. If my laser's where I want it, I hit origin, and now that's locked in. Before I cut, I gotta make sure that I check the height. I like to manually focus all of my stuff. I'm not a big autofocus guy. So I go through and make sure that this is perfect, and it is. So very simple to manually focus. For me, it takes about as long as autofocus, and I feel like I've got good control of it, and I don't have to worry about that pin hitting anything. So now that that's set, my origin's set, I am ready to cut. Now, because I cut inside, I have a filter box. I don't exhaust the vent or the smoke and things outside. So I need to turn that on, which is down this direction. I've got it kind of off to the side here. So I turn my filter box on, and then I hit start, and we are ready to go. Got my trusty glasses. One great thing about the Aeon lasers are their speed. You'll notice, I mean, we've already cut the bunny, and now we're doing the engrave. If I could do this over, I'd engrave it first, and then cut, and that's simple to do. You can just change the file to drag that cut layer up top, or drag the cut layer down. But I think we'll be okay in this case. And it is done. That was 42 seconds, pretty quick. There's our tag. So now we weed it, and you'll notice there's a few spots where it's inside the engraved. So I like to take some of this tape and take those pieces off first, and then we can peel this whole thing back. And you'll see that nice, pretty blue coming through. Notice the back is nice and clean as well. Just keeps things really nice. That masking's a great thing. So we need to cut the tail. One really cool feature that the Aeon lasers come with is a laser inside. And what that does is help you pick exactly where in the laser bed you want to cut your material. So if you come and see, this is a piece of scrap that I had that I used on a different project that's painted white, which is what I want the tail to be. And you can see I've cut a bunch of tails already out of this, and I'll show you how we cut more. I've got plenty of usable space in here that we can cut all kinds of tails. So I put that down in the laser bed, and then we go to the computer and run a lot of it straight from there. The computer, where we need to get that bunny tail uploaded to the laser to cut. Now, if you recall, we did delete it from the previous artwork. So we need to go back into our art library, which is not a big deal. We just find it, we drag it over. We change the height to that 4 inches, which is what we set it to. Because these come grouped, we're going to ungroup them so I can get rid of that outside layer. We're going to delete that away, leaving us just with that bunny tail. I'm going to select that and put it on the black cut layer. So that tail's ready to cut. Now when I go over to my laser settings, a lot of times this is set to job origin. And I could put this on the material and try to line it up myself. But I'm going to utilize the camera that Aeon installs for us. And it really helps use up the scrap material that we have and goes a long way, which is really cool. So I'm going to put this to absolute coordinates. And I'm going to bring up my camera control, which is under the window menu. And you'll see this is exactly what the laser sees, okay? And when I hit update overlay, it'll automatically show it. I like to hit the fade option so I can see a little better. And I can pick a spot now to drag this and tell it where I want it to cut from. And notice I can put this in a lot of different places. I'm going to put it right in here, and if you notice, there is not much room, but I've got just enough room for a bunny tail, and I can use a lot of these spots and use up that material. So it's a real good cost saver for us. So I've got that there, and then we're going to go over, now that that's uploaded, we've got to close the laser itself. And then I'm going to send the job to the laser. I'm sorry, I'm not going to send, I'm just going to hit start. And when I hit start, the laser will go right to that position and cut it. And it is that quick. Our bunny tail. Weed those just the same. Now one thing we do on the back of our bunny tails is we like the 3M adhesive. Works really well. We don't have glue squeezing out or anything, so you put that down first. We had that whole panel covered with it, and then I like to use a little X-Acto knife. You peel off the back layer of that 3M. Find a good little spot. Right about there. You give it a good press to really ensure it's bonded well. And then once that sets up, it's not going anywhere. And that is our Easter Bunny basket name tag.